Good morning, everybody. Indeed, it's a pleasure to be able to be here, be able to share some of the stories as our veterans from World War II and those in Korea as well that you listened to, but more importantly to all you cadets for being here. As you've been a good audience, so I appreciate it. So one of the things is that trying to keep this on time for you is my best, because I have a tendency to yak and take off. But let me try to put it in perspective. And I think one of the things is that within the introduction is that along the way, there will always be people that will help us along, pull us along the way. But that'll be the theme of what I want to talk about. But just in the beginning, as has been mentioned, I was very fortunate to be able to play with that team in Pittsburgh that today now allows me to wear those Super Bowl rings from Super Bowls 9 and Super Bowls 10 and Super Bowls 13 and Super Bowls 14. And do you know how many Steeler fans it takes to change a light bulb? Don't hurt yourself. The answer is 5, obviously. 1 to change the light bulb, the other 4 to talk about how great the 70s were. Anyway, from 74, 75, 78, 79, 1 against the Minnesota Vikings, 2 against the Dallas Cowboys, and the 4th against the then LA Rams. But you have to understand that having 4 Super Bowl rings poses a lot of problems to me. Because no matter where I may go, it raises a myriad of questions like, well, geez, Rock, you got 4 Super Bowl rings. Do you change them every day? How do you decide which one to wear? Which ones you like better? Which one do you wear the most? Well, I have to tell you in all honesty that this one that I wear on my right hand from Super Bowl 13, the second time that we had played the Dallas Cowboys, is the one that I wear all the time, and for various reasons. One happened to be the best game I played in all 4 Super Bowls. Secondly, it was the only game in all 4 Super Bowls that I had scored a touchdown in. But you have to understand, it was just not a run-of-the-mill flop your body over the goal line kind of a touchdown, because really, think about it, that does not take a whole lot of skill. Any dumb slob can do that from 1 yard out. Just give him the ball, let him fall over that goal line. But no, this one was one of a great athletic achievement, one of an extraordinary ability. And for those of you who may remember it, now these many years ago, I want to thank you very much. Now, for those of you who don't remember it, somewhat fuzzy, quite not in focus, and although you may remember that the Steelers had partook in the game, and yeah, maybe Bleier did do something, well, I would like to make sure that before we leave here this morning, is that touchdown will be forever etched in your memories. So I'd like to take you back very briefly in time to that game all those many years ago, the second time that we'd played the Cowboys. And we knew it was going to be a very toughly fought battle because of the fact you just don't play the Cowboys twice after you beat them the first time and expect them to roll over and play dead the second time. And that game had seesawed back and forth, especially in the first half, when all of a sudden the score was tied, 14-14. And we got the ball back. But more importantly, we got momentum on our side. And we started to drive the ball down the field. And as we're driving the ball down the field, all of a sudden we found ourselves down on the 7-yard line. And it was 3rd down with 1 yard to go for a first down. Think about this. As we broke the huddle, my running mate, Franco Harris, is lined up behind our quarterback, Terry Bradshaw. I am to the right of Franco. The play that had been called was just a quick pass play to the halfback, myself, where I would go at a 45-degree angle down to the line of scrimmage, cut down the line of scrimmage at another 45-degree angle, catch the ball over my shoulder, take a 90-degree turn up the field, pick up 1, 2, 3 yards, depending on how the Cowboys would react. And they always reacted well. Well, when the ball was snapped, none of that happened. I did break out of my stance, but my opponent jumped across the line across from me, and I had to cut it short, so I took that 90-degree turn right up the field. In the meantime, Bradshaw was faking to Franco Harris into the line of scrimmage, and when he pulled that ball out, looking for that receiver, myself, down that line of scrimmage, and when he did not spot me, being the smart, intelligent quarterback that we perceived him to be, it finally dawned on him that it might be a broken play. So he tucked the ball underneath his arm, and he started to scramble to his right, and as he's scrambling to his right, that sideline was looming up. Opposite side of him, larger than life, Neanderthal beings with lobotomies chasing him down. Then it happened. Maybe once in a lifetime will you ever experience it, when all time just seems to stand still. And our eyes met across the field, now 30 yards separating us. And under pressure, he released the ball, maybe a little too quickly, maybe a little too high. And it came floating into that end zone. And as it came floating into that end zone, I leaped all 5'9.5" of me with all my might straight up in the air as high as I could go. I don't know, 18, 19, 20 feet. I kind of forget after all these years. And I grabbed that ball and came down across that goal line, give us a score and a lead, and a lead we'd never relinquished. But that is not why I wear this ring. No. I wear this ring because it happens to be the largest and gaudiest of all four of them. But you have to understand that every time that I wear these rings, for me, these rings truly are a symbol. And they're important, as all symbols in our lives are important, because they're really constant reminders of the successes that we've had, failures of experience, depths that we prevailed, heights we've achieved, of the constant barriers that we ought to overcome to be able to get there. A constant reminder that getting to the top or becoming the best or becoming number one or winning the Super Bowl just doesn't happen. But yet it takes all those ingredients that we've come to learn in our lives. It takes hard work and dedication, it takes a commitment, it takes a passion, but it also takes leadership and people and a vision and a belief system shoved in a capsule that no matter what we may do, we love to call a team. And throughout our lives, we've heard many definitions of that word team. How about that acronym, TEAM? Together, everyone achieves more. How many times have we heard that? How many times have we used it? Obviously, we understand that concept. But probably the best definition I heard came from my head coach, Chuck Noll, all those years in Pittsburgh, who defined a team simply as this: a group of individuals coming together for a common purpose and a common goal. And along the way, we have our own responsibility. Game of football is an example. Common purpose, play the game. Common goal, to win. Responsibility, head coach, coaching staff. Get the right players, put them in the right position, train them, and then ultimately arm them with the best offense and defensive game plans. Players' responsibility. Take the game plans, whether you like them or not, and execute them to the best of your ability. So then when you walk off that field and look at yourself in the mirror, get that one moment where you can honestly say, I did everything I could according to the plan. Because each and every one of you says that then all the parts will come together as a whole, and that whole truly will be a victory. Individuals come together for a common purpose and a common goal. Whether we play the game of football or in sports or in the military or in the service, the concept's the same. The idea is the same. There's great transposure between all those fields of how we operate and the mindset that you have to be able to operate in that way. Really the one business that we're all in, no matter what we may do, we're really all in the hope business. You have to understand that no man is an island. If you think about it, we all belong to one continent. We didn't get to where we are today by ourselves. Okay, we got here because of someone, something. We got here because of an opportunity. We got here because of a parent, a mentor, a teacher, a coach. We got here because of a professor. We got here because of a drill sergeant. We got here because somebody cared, took care of us, gave an opportunity, maybe kicked us through the door, pulled us by the ears, slapped us behind the head. Somebody that cared. And all our lives are built on hope. Think about it. That little kernel, that little ingredient that says, I can accomplish something within my life. And it has to start somewhere. And think about it. And mine, and if I may share this, started with the greatest football game I ever played in. I was 9 years old. I'm playing Dickie Weisgerber, my next door neighbor. Being born and raised in a small Midwestern town, Appleton, Wisconsin, for us cheeseheads, football was a big part of our lives, and Dickie and I had an extensive schedule. We had home and away games. And the first game of that season was an away game for me, so of course I had to go across the street, pick up Dickie and play in his side lawn. What a game. What a game. I scored 51 touchdowns that afternoon, thank you very much. More importantly, I shut him out. The sucker didn't score. Think about it. That's 357-0. Oh, my God. It was a game of skill and will. Now, just because of the fact Dickie was 5, shouldn't take anything away from my personal achievement. You didn't know Dickie was a big kid. He was a tough 5. And as I had made mention, I grew up across the street from Dickie. I grew up in a bar. Neighborhood shot in a beer joint. We lived behind it and we slept upstairs. And I met a lot of great people that walked through those doors and sat on those stools across from my father. I also met a lot of would'ves and could'ves and should'ves, as we all have in our lives. Rock, I could have played, but I blew my knee out in 2nd grade. It just hasn't been the same. Should have played or would have played. Now, there's always reasons why that sometimes those childhood dreams we had didn't come to fruition, but hopefully what we've been able to do is learn from them and use them as a stepping stone to propel us in a new and different direction. And I tell you this only because Dickie was not a would have, could have, should have guy. We competed in the neighborhood. We had pickup games. We'd play rec ball, organized sports. And one of the things that we learned along that way is that there was always a catalyst that would pull individuals together and mold them into a team. And it would be the success of that team that got you recognized for your contribution. Because coming out of high school, we had a very successful team. And because of that, we'd never lost a football game. I got a chance to continue my education. And I got a scholarship offer to go to the University of Notre Dame. And because of a catalyst, a coach by the name of Ara Parsegian, taking individuals, molding them into a team. By my junior year, we win a national championship. And I become captain of the football team my senior year. And because of that success, I get drafted into the National Football League by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, just to put things in the right perspective, I was not their first choice. I did not make their top 10 lists. I was the 417th person picked in the draft that year. I was a 16th round draft choice. But you have to understand, from my point of view, there were 17 rounds. Hey, at least I'm not the last guy picked. I might have a chance to be able to make this team. And people said, well, how'd you make the team back then? Well, do you remember who played for the Steelers in the 60s? That's how come I made the team, because nobody remembers who played for them during that period of time. And I got a chance to play 10 of 14 games, primarily on special teams. And I was sitting in front of my locker at Old Pitt Stadium, because that's where we practice. And that locker room was laid out like every locker room before since Lockers were up against the wall, players around on the perimeter. In the middle was a laundry basket with a couple tables. And one of the tables was where all the fan mail would be deposited for the players. That was a place I had never visited from that first day of training camp up through the 10th game of the season, not when you're the 417th person picked in a draft, playing on a losing team. I mean, nobody knows you exist. My mother, God rest her soul, never even sent me a letter. When all of a sudden one of the equipment men holler, "Hey, Bleier, there's a letter over here for you." Well, I stood up from that stool, maybe a little too quickly. You ever do that? Got a little lightheaded. Looked around to see if anybody noticed, gathered myself, puffed out my chest, sauntered over to the table as if I'd been there before, thinking, now who's writing me a letter? Maybe it's a Notre Dame fan that wants an autograph from a former captain. I got to the table and I perused through the mail, and my God, there it was, my first piece of fan mail. And I have to tell you in all honesty, I picked it up very tenderly, opened it up, slipped out the paper inside, unfolded it. It was from my uncle Sam. "Greetings," it said. "We'd like to inform you that you've been inducted into the armed services of your country." Whew. Now that was the worst fan letter I've ever received. Like everyone else who got their draft notification back in 1968, there was no lottery then. I wasn't necessarily embracing my soon-to-be current change in life. I quickly calculated my options because we had options back then in an unpopular war. You probably read in the history books. I could leave the country. Some people were doing that. Yeah, not me, okay. Another option, not report. Consequence, go to jail. Whew, that's even worse, okay. I could apply as a conscientious objector to that war. Yeah, but coming from Appleton, Wisconsin, really, in all honesty, what was I going to object about? I could enlist now, but that was a 4-year commitment at that time. Being drafted was only 2 years. I mean, I did have things I wanted to do. Oh, I know, I could join the reserve or the National Guard. But this was 1968, the height of the war, all those spots were filled. I was quickly running out of options. Now, we had a game against the Cleveland Browns before I had to report. And I thought to myself, hey, you might have another option. What if you got hurt in that game? You might not have to report. So in that game against the Browns, let me tell you this. I threw my body into every Browns jersey I could find. And stupid Browns, they couldn't even hurt me when I wanted them to. But when I knew I was going to go, it was a certain relief. Because I wanted to live up to my responsibility. I mean, what would I tell my kids if they ever said, hey, Dad, what did you do during the war? What if I truly disappointed Mom and Dad? First letter I wrote home was this: Dear Mom and Dad, Vietnam's really not as bad as I thought it would be. We're on the ocean side. Sometimes we're allowed in it. Temperature's about 80 degrees, the heat's about 100. Whew, it really makes it feel cool. Damn it, I thought, how many kids just like me wrote that same kind of letter home the first day they were in country? Yeah, it's a tropical paradise. And I wrote home often. And I said to them, I'm going to tell you just the way it is. So if you want something to worry about, I'll give you something to worry about. Then I wrote, ha, ha, ha. I guess that was my policy. I mean, there was no text, tweets, posts back then. Hell, I could be dead before they got my letter. And so I wrote to them about the elephant grass that was tall and sharp, about the leeches that were short and sharp. But the wait-a-minute vines, oh, you'd be out in patrol with your unit in this 100-plus degree temperature. Temperature's so hot it'd make your nose bleed. The temperature that would deconstruct this body from over 200 pounds to 170 pounds. And you come across these vines that had thorns on them like little fish hooks, and all of a sudden you get caught, and the more you try to get yourself untangled, God, just the more you got yourself tangled, so that the only thing you could holler was, wait a minute, until you got yourself untangled. I wrote to them about the Viet Cong, who were farmers by day and killers by night, about my luxurious air mattress and the poncho liner I used as a cover, how the mud turned into rivers when it rained, and the only time you got a chance to bathe was when it did rain. I wore in the same clothes 2-3 weeks at a time. Now, I didn't write to them about the snakes or the occasional Bengal tiger. I really didn't want them to worry. I could handle combat, I thought to myself. You know why? Because I had the nuns. What was combat like? Yeah, it was like 16 years of Catholic education. It was like that, you know. You thought if I could be flip about it, I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to think about how ridiculously unfunny it really was. So when the bullet entered my thigh and I was laying on the ground and blood was pouring in my pants, I did think about the nuns. One in particular, my 6th grade teacher, Sister Bleier, and all the stories that she told us about those soldiers in Korea in World War II, that when the blood started to flow, they started making deals. You get me out of here, and I'll become a priest. And I thought, well, that's where I'm starting my bidding. So you get me out of here, and I'll become a... Well, I wasn't going to become a priest. I mean, what else you got? You know, in 4 days, I was going to go to leadership school. I had the chance to test out of combat in 4 damn days, but this was not August 24th. This was August 20th, 1969. And bleeding was the best you could hope for, because guys were dying, not making deals. They were dying. We had a young kid in our platoon. We called him a Y, because he was from the islands somewhere, 19 years old. Took 2 in the gut in front of me, went down, never got up. 19 years old. Had a fiance somewhere across the beautiful Pacific, 19 years old. So with a bullet in my thigh and panic in my chest, I still had my weapon, a grenade launcher. Let me tell you this, I was launching grenades not knowing where they were landing. I mean, we were getting hammered. I put my head down for a moment, maybe reconsidering the priesthood, when all of a sudden I saw a grenade come flying through the air and hit my commanding officer in the middle of the back, bounced off, and I wasn't but 3 feet from him, rolled between my feet, and it went off. Shrapnel ripped between my legs. It's amazing what the body will tolerate when adrenaline takes over, for it's easy to endure the pain than not to breathe. Finally, a sister company fought its way down, so our rescuers, with the walking wounded, half of our unit was either dead or wounded, carried us out of there. Carried me out on a poncho liner, 170 pounds of dead meat. And they dragged me through the night, till they couldn't drag me any further. They said, don't worry, we'll send a stretcher back for you. When all of a sudden, out of the darkness, 2 black hands reach down, scoops me up, throws me over his shoulders, and continues to carry me on to that helicopter. Now, the helicopter was a long way away, and this black man would put me down, my blood all over him, catch his breath, pick me up again, and continue on until he got me onto that chopper. And I never saw him again. Didn't know his name, didn't know where he lived, where he came from, where he went. But I'm here today because of a colorblind soldier back in 1969. A soldier saw not that he was black and white, but that blood was blood was blood. He did more for me on that day than if he was my own brother. In some regards, we did become brothers in the brotherhood of war. So I got to an aid station in Da Nang. Then I flew to Tokyo, where I spent 3 weeks in a hospital before I came back to the States, where I spent 9 months in a hospital, went through 3 more operations. But it was during that period of time when I was in the hospital in Da Nang, just out of the field, IV, morphine drips, in and out of my body, and all those questions that we have of time and needs of just why me? I mean, now what? Where am I going to go? I mean, where's my future? And across from me, was a triple amputee. Young soldier lost his left arm and both legs. And every day that I was there, the aides would come to take him to therapy. And he'd grab that little trapeze that swung over his bed, and he'd swing his torso into his wheelchair as he best possibly could. And they would push him out. But he made sure he stopped at every bed in that ward, and it wasn't a big ward, and he'd stop in my bed. And he'd say, "Hey, how you doing today? You know, you look better today than you did yesterday, because when you got here yesterday, let me be honest, you look like shit. Now listen, we got some good docs here. We're going to take care of you. We'll get you out of here, and I'll see you back in the real world one of these days." And I thought, wow, if anybody could be embittered with their lot in life, would be that young soldier who had to live with those atrocities that took place thousands of miles away, but yet he chose to have a positive attitude. And I thought, wow, I mean, if he could have an attitude like that, what about me? I'm going to walk someday. And I got to Tokyo, and after a couple weeks in Tokyo, I finally got enough courage to ask my physician whether or not I could play this stupid game of football again when I got out of here because of my injuries. Now, his response to that question was something like this. He said, "Don't worry about it. You're going to have a normal life. You're going to be able to do the things that normal people do. Just don't expect to get back in that gridiron." He said, "Because of the fact you just won't have the strength nor the flexibility to do the things that are necessary to be a running back in the NFL." For you see, what he had formulated from what? From his point of information, from his stream of information, was a perception about my ability. And at that moment, as my authority figure, he just sucked that hope right out. 2 days later, as was mentioned, I got a postcard in the mail, a simple postcard. Had 2 lines on it, said this: "Rock, team's not doing well. We need you. Art Rooney." Wow, somebody needed me. No, they didn't need me. Somebody took the time to care. And being the family that they are, I came back. And they put me on injured reserve. And I had an operation, another operation. And I came back the following year. A little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. And they made the taxi squad, or as they call it today, the developmental squad. So they bought me 2 years. 2 years to get better, 2 years to get healed, 2 years to try to make a difference. So I came back again, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Leading ground gainer during the exhibition season. Thank you very much. Good enough to make the team. Never carried the ball thereafter, but hey, better than the year before. Came back the following year, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Leading ground gainer, once again, during the exhibition season. Good enough to make the team. Got to carry the ball once during that season. And I'd worked hard, and I worked diligently. I weighed 218 pounds. I bench pressed 465 pounds, I squatted 600 pounds. They gave me the opportunity to be able to make the team. But all of a sudden, 1974 wasn't looking up. I mean, to make the team again, I was going to have to fight with every free agent and draft choice and rookie to do so. And I just didn't think it was fair. I mean, I put it into context, and it doesn't seem like much when you talk about it, but over a period of time, it's a 5-year journey from when I was a rookie, coming back, trying to make that team again, and it just wasn't like I was going anywhere. And so after the 73 season, I left the team, tried to find my life's work. I mean, I had 5 credited seasons in the NFL, enough for my retirement. And I just thought my life was going some direction that didn't look like was going to be there. And I was in Chicago selling life insurance. when I got a call from a teammate of mine. It's coming in Chicago. Big sports dinner taking place. He was our team captain. He said, why don't you join us? I hadn't seen you since the end of the season. I declined because I was not going back. He pushed, I declined some more, and he pushed some more, and then he asked me that question, why? And the only thing I could blurt out was, I quit. I'm not going back. And he said, you can't quit. He said, if you quit, what you've already done is you've already made a decision for that coaching staff. He said, do you like them well enough to make decisions for them? He said, no, your responsibility, if this is what you want, he said, you come back and you make them make a decision. You back them in the corner. You give them every reason to either keep you or release you, but you don't cut yourself. I mean, the reality of this game is that we're all expendable. The reality of this game is we all can be cut at any time. But if this is what you want, then you don't cut yourself. And maybe it was just the arm twisting I needed from an older brother I didn't have, and I went back. And everything that I had perceived, did take place. And I had a fight with every free agent, draft choice, and rookie once again to be able to make the team. Leading ground gainer during the exhibition season. Thank you very much. Now, I tell you that in context, only because of the fact that the reason that I was the leading ground gainer in those seasons wasn't because of the fact that I was bigger, better, faster than all the other running backs. No, it was the simple fact that I played more than anybody else during that period of time. I carried the ball more than anybody else during that period of time. Given those two simple statistics, I better be the leading ground gainer during that period of time, because all they were providing for me was an opportunity to be able to make this team. And they had to keep me. And I was the 5th running back out of 4 back on the team, back playing special teams. When unbeknownst to us, or me, that first game of the season, Franco Harris, our starting fullback, got hurt. The backup became the starter. I became the backup to the backup. Wow, I'd never been there before. So with renewed vigor, that first game, second game, third game, fourth game, the backup gets hurt. And I'm inserted in the game as a fullback, along with my running mate, a guy by the name of Preston Pearson. He finished his career at the Dallas Cowboys, but I tell you this only because of the fact that he breaks one 43 yards down the sideline, scores right before the half. With a lead. We go in at halftime, go over assignments, adjustments. I'm thinking, who's going to start the second half? Maybe those guys that gave you a lead in the first half, and we get to start the second half. And as a team, we win that game. Following week, everybody's still banged up, so Preston and I get to start, and as a team, we win that game. The week thereafter, it's a Monday night game, an extra day of healing. Franco now becomes healthy. Damn. But that's okay. At least I got a chance to play, prove, show what I could do. We had our pregame meal. Afterwards, we have a breakout group. All the running backs get together. We go over last-minute assignments, adjustments. Coach gives us the first 3 plays of the game, just in case Bradshaw should forget, so we can remind him what they are. And he looks around the table and he says, Franco, you and Rock will start tonight. And momentarily, I was quite confused. I didn't know how we both could play the same position at the same time. When it finally dawned on me, I was going to play the fullback position as I had been playing. I was going to play the other running back position. Nobody told me that. I wish they would have. I'd been better prepared going into the game. But we get to start that game. And as a team, we win that game. So we get to start the following week. And as a team, we win that game. So we start the remaining part of the season, Bradshaw, Franco, and myself, and we win the division. And we go to the playoffs. And we win the playoffs. And we go to the Super Bowl for the first time. And we win the Super Bowl. And we play 6 more years together. And we win 3 more Super Bowls. And in 1976, Franco and I become the second set of running backs in the history of the NFL, each to gain 1,000 yards rushing in one season. And after 12 years, I retire. Now, I tell you that whole story in context because no matter how determined we may be, how passionate we are for what we do, how hard we may work, there are times in our lives that we beat our head against the wall. There are times in our lives when the grass looks greener on the other side. There are times in our lives when we question what we're doing. There are times in our lives when we want to quit and move on. Well, I suppose the whole moral of the story is that if I would have quit, I would have never had the opportunity to play those 12 years and play in those Super Bowls or have all those memories. But the reason I got a chance to play wasn't because of my size and speed, two things I do not possess, but ultimately because of one talent. Because the one thing you have to understand, no matter who we are, what we do, is that we all possess a talent of one nature or another, different than one another. And it's our responsibility to be able to define what that talent is. We see prior to that breakout group, all those many years ago, unbeknownst to me, Chuck Knoll came up to our backfield coach and said, hey, you have a weakness in your backfield. Who is your best blocker? He said, Bleier. He said, then start him. One talent. And all of a sudden, that fine line of one that connected my life came full circle. Much like the fine line of one that connects each and every one of our lives to where we are at this moment in time. If it wasn't for that one talent, well, I might not have had that opportunity. Well, then I got to thinking, well, if it wasn't for that one injury, I might not have had a chance to start. Or if it wasn't for Preston's one touchdown, we may never have played that second half. Or if it wasn't for that one phone call, one postcard, one triple amputee, one black soldier, it may never have happened at all. And that is the power that we have, the power to make a difference, the power to make a change, the power to make an impact. Because as William Jennings Bryan said, destiny is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. It's not a thing to be waited for, but it's a thing to be achieved in each and every one of our destinies. Lies right here in our own hands. We can become what we want to become. So in closing, I'd like to leave you the few words that have been with me for many, many years, and they go like this. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you cannot, you don't. If you like to win, think you can't, it's almost a cinch you won't. Life's battles won't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later, the one who wins is the one who thinks he can. And you're all winners. You're here. God bless. I salute you. Thank you very much.